Welcome along to the Agegroup Multisport podcast with me, Richard Conway, a platform for Agegroup Multisport athletes to share their journeys into multisport, age group and beyond. Welcome back to AMP, and thank you once again for taking your time out to give us a listen and your support. Much appreciated. And if it's your first time, hope you enjoy what we've got in store. On this episode, we're speaking to an age group athlete, as per usual, but unusually, we're speaking to an age group athlete who has represented two countries. She's British. She represented GB in age group. And then 8 years ago, she up sticks and moved across the other side of the world to Australia. And it took her 4 years, but she finally was able to represent Australia as age group as well. So after I'd put up a couple of posts on Instagram and Facebook asking for more guests, Natasha got in touch via email, and she basically said that she's not sure that her story would be very interesting. So please don't worry if I felt that she wasn't suitable for our podcast. But as soon as I heard a background story and read further down the email, we got something sorted pretty much straight away. Fascinating journey all the way through from start to finish, and even more so that she now lives in Australia and she's represented two countries at age group. So we had a great chat. It was lunchtime for me and it was 7 o'clock for Natasha over in Perth. And we did have a few technical issues, but we managed to get, I think, what is a reasonable chat. And I hope you enjoy her story. So that's coming up. Congratulations if you were racing at the weekend, and I bring that up particularly for all those that were trying to qualify at Thruxton at the weekend, the Thruxton Duathlon, which was a sprint duathlon qualifier. And something a little bit new, David Pearson, who has been on this podcast a couple of times, wants to share his own story, and the second time he was on to promote the website that he created called My Tri Ranking, which lets you see where you rank in the country at triathlon, duathlon, multisport in general. And he's come up with another string to his bow, I suppose. So as well as all those things, giving us all the information about age group qualification races, he was at Thruxton, the World Sprint Duathlon qualifier, and he was commentating and streaming it live. Not sure whether it was just a one-off or he plans to do more of the same in the future at qualifying races. So watch this space, and if you are interested in age group, head over to Age Group News and you can find all the details of all the races that have been going on. And just a big well done, David. I got my fix of triathlon at the weekend. Super Tri was back and they were over in Toulouse in France. Really good racing, exciting racing. I think it's probably one of the best formats to watch that's out there at the moment, to be fair. I know it's been said that it can be a bit confusing at times, but I think now that they've done the format that they've got, which is a swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, I think it's pretty straightforward and easy to follow. But yeah, fantastic racing. The efforts that the guys put in doing 3 triathlons back to back, it's really exciting, especially with the short shoot. Again, that was criticised, but I quite like it. Although this one didn't really make much of a difference, I didn't think, the way they'd set the course out. But really exciting racing. Georgia Taylor-Brown come out on top for the ladies. So she's heading their series. And in the men's race, there was no Alex G racing. and it was a bit of a different podium, to be fair. It's normally between Yi and Wild, but it was the Portuguese Vasco Valaza and the German Tim Hellwig who took gold and silver, with Aidan Wild coming in third. And he claimed that he didn't have his shoe on properly, so he couldn't really sprint for it. But great racing. And then at the weekend also there was the Gravel World Championships, and usually gravel's not a very big thing, but it was on Eurosport, and a lot of the professional cyclists were over there giving it a go. And again, some exciting races. So if you haven't seen any of that, head over to Eurosport or YouTube and catch up on the highlights. Really, really good racing, really fun racing to watch. Couple of podcasts to recommend, and the first one is That Triathlon Show, and he was talking about training zones and thresholds, and he was discussing pretty much everything that you need to know about training zones. It got a bit technical at times, but you can fast forward that. Basically, the outcome was that you should go by feel. You don't really need to do a lactate test and get hung up on the numbers, and that basically a training zone is a communication tool. So that was quite interesting. And the second one was from a podcast called Feel Better, Live More with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. And basically they were looking at the new science of the body clock and how to boost your immune system and reclaim your energy and improve your lifestyle. And he had a lady on there called Kristen Holmes, who's global head of performance and principal scientist at the Whoop Institute. And she was saying basically that our circadian rhythm is a way that we can all transform our health. And by aligning our daily habits, such as what time you go to bed and what time you wake up, and making those consistent, drinking alcohol, how late you eat, what you eat, all these things can transform our health, and they have consequences of a disrupted circadian rhythm if they aren't aligned. So yeah, really interesting. I haven't finished listening to it yet, but I've heard a lot of it before, but really interesting podcast. So give that one a listen. And finally, really enjoying getting back to running. Been putting 3 runs in a week now, making sure that I'm warming up properly before each run, and I'm trying to get on the turbo or bike before I run, so my legs are really warmed up, and also doing some dynamic stretching, especially before the track session. You can see that sort of thing over on our YouTube channel. We put some videos up there of the sorts of things that we do. But yeah, it's going really well. Really enjoy being back running, running with the WBC team, and yeah, really cool. Been doing quite a bit on the turbo. The swimming's not been so great, but we are going to pick that back up probably when we go back over to Lanzarote in a few weeks' time, and then continue with that. But so glad to be back running. Really missed it. Right, on to the main event. Hope you enjoy Natasha's story, and we'll see you on the other side.
Okay.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. It's just it's our evening now, obviously, so just settling down to have a bit of a relax.
Have you heard any of the previous podcasts that we've done?
I have heard a few of them, yes. And I have to say that most people seem to be much grander and greater than me. But
Say that, but I don't know. Your resume, I've just been looking at it again and making some notes, and It's good.
Oh,
It's
or
good.
it's just
You do
busy,
yourself
I think.
justice.
Busy.
Very, very
Yeah,
good. Welcome along to AMP. If you would just like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
sure. I'm Natasha Pertwee, and I currently live in Australia. But I've been here for 8 years. And previous to that, I was in East Sussex in the UK. And that's where I entered the world of triathlon. But as I was growing up, mostly in Oxfordshire, I wasn't hugely sporty. I did play a bit of hockey, a bit of netball, but I was never really introduced to anything beyond that. Um, at university, I carried on with the tennis and the hockey. Still didn't sort of depart from that, apart from perhaps a little bit of dabbling in windsurfing or something like that. And it really wasn't until I had my children and I couldn't play hockey anymore because my husband plays as well. I needed to find something else.
Hmm.
And I started running.
Okay.
And a friend of mine had been a runner and was coming back to it. And she was really, really important in helping me with that.
Hmm.
She really supported me. She pushed the buggies when the boys were babies. And yeah, it got me to join Hastings Runners. Shout out to Hastings Runners because they got me going. And that was it really. So I got into the running, but I wasn't good. I wasn't
Yeah.
anywhere
It was
like,
just something for you to continue
yeah,
doing.
it
And
was just
you could obviously
a
take the
hobby.
kids out when you were running in the
That's
street and
cool.
things. How many kids
Yeah,
have you got,
two boys.
boys?
Yeah,
And what ages are they
yeah.
now?
They are now very nearly 21 and 18.
Yeah,
So
nice.
yeah,
Another
this
loving
is a
life over there in Australia.
absolutely yes.
And
There's a
just going back to that, why did you move over there? I know we'll probably get into
oh, that was for work.
right.
So my husband and I are both GPs,
Okay.
and we had enough of the NHS and so made the move.
Right.
And yes, but it was the best thing we've ever done.
Everybody says that.
Yeah.
I've had a
Yeah.
couple of people that are like Brits that have moved over to
Yeah.
us. Actually, one of them's just come back now. Um, but she said it was a really good move. So
Yeah, yeah. Life things, well, work-wise is a lot easier. And because of the weather, I suppose everything else is much easier as well. So yeah, it's nice. It suits us.
yeah,
That's the
good.
main thing.
That's all that matters, isn't it? You know, you found
Yeah,
somewhere you
yeah,
can enjoy.
absolutely.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
good.
Um,
And you're over in Perth, is that
that's
right?
right.
Yeah,
Yes, in Western Australia. So we live about 45 minutes drive south of Perth, on a in a coastal town. So we're right by the
good.
beaches. And the only thing Perth lacks is hills. So we do have some hills, but they are there's nothing extreme.
Hmm.
So training for hilly events can be quite challenging, but
Well, you know, it's very rare you can have everything in one place.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you get around that.
Yes, we do. We just go up and down the hills a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brilliant. So you got into your running and you were running with Hastings Runners.
Yeah.
What sort of running were you doing?
So I went, my first ever run was 5K. That was the first thing. And then I just moved on through the distances, and did 10 and 21. And then finally, someone persuaded me to have a go at Beachy Head Marathon, which back then wasn't called a trail marathon like they are now. It was just a marathon. And yeah, and that was great, loved it. And then I did Hastings Marathon, which only happens once every 100 years.
Right.
So it had to be done. And then once that was done, I was kind of done with running. I'd sort of done what I needed to do.
How many
And
years were you running?
of- so I think probably about eight
Right.
years. Yeah. but again, not competitively, not, I didn't do anything particularly fancy. I just got the job done and enjoyed it. And then a friend of mine said she was doing the Worthing Triathlon.
Did you know what a triathlon was?
No, I was just, I was gobsmacked, and it sounded so ridiculous that I couldn't swim. I didn't have a road bike, and I was in awe of her. And she came back to our house afterwards, and she had her medal and her t-shirt. And I was just like, yeah, I want a bit of that.
Had she done triathlon before, or was that the first one?
That was her first and last, actually, as it happens.
Okay.
But I took it on instead. And but I had so much to learn, and I had not a clue. And so I taught myself to swim from YouTube.
Saw that on your
And
email, and I just thought
yeah,
that was impressive.
well, I literally was total immersion that I was watching. And I just used to start by standing in the pool and putting my face in and just turning your head. Because, yeah, I mean, you've probably always been a swimmer, but I didn't even know if my head would do that. So, yeah, started from the beginning. And yeah, put road wheels on my mountain bike. And my first one was Hever Castle,
Hmm.
but the evening one when they used to do those
And that was an open water swim.
in the moat. Yeah.
And how did you find that, like transfer from learning yourself in a pool to
Yeah.
your first one?
Um, I just remember swimming and thinking, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. This is amazing. I'm doing it. And I have to say that even back then and even on that one, everyone was so supportive and so kind and so helpful. And yeah, then that was it. I was hooked
The
straight
book.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did it develop?
From there, so I did it was always sprints. I didn't do anything more than a sprint. I didn't really know that there was anything more than that. And just did lots of local sprints and did that for a couple of years. Thought I could get away with not doing very much training, and then realized I couldn't. And then a great friend of mine that used to coach with Michelle Dillon um, said she'd give me a bit of a hand, and she did. And that year I got onto the podium at the September Hever Castle,
Wow.
and I was like, okay, I'm there.
Well,
Let's go for whatever this age group thing is.
that's a lesson for everybody then, isn't it? Bit of focus really, and
Yeah,
determination, and doing the right training, and you can get
yes.
on the
I
podium.
think I was very naive and just didn't realize how much training it needed, that you actually did have to train properly. Um, in order, if you want to finish, it's one thing, but if you want to finish well, then you can't get away with just
Hmm.
doing nothing or doing something once a week. You have to commit.
And did you join a club, or was it just a friend got
Yeah.
you out?
So once I decided I wanted to try this age group thing out, I joined Wheeled Tri Club,
And how did you find
and
out about age group?
through my friend that was working as a coach at the time,
Did
and
she?
she'd done age
Yeah,
group.
she done age group, right? Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm good enough, but let's see. And so yeah, I joined the club, and the coaches there were really helpful in telling me sort of what would be expected, what kind of level I was looking at. It was pretty daunting. I mean, there's some fantastic women out there. And yeah, so off to Eton. I went to Eton Dorney. Did okay, but not especially fantastically. Thought I'd get in on roll down, wasn't 100% certain. So I drove 12 hours to Strathclyde. Um, came third,
Wow.
got my place,
Yeah.
job
Well,
done.
you definitely earned that then, didn't you? That's that's
Yeah,
that's dedication.
yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so off to Mexico.
So just going back to um, when starting and then finding out about age group, how did your training change from one to the other to get you to that level? What were
Yeah.
some things?
Um, so I think the main thing was the swimming. Obviously, that has always been my weakest point. Not really learning to swim till I was, old. And so with the club, they had coached sessions that I could go to. So I went to as many as I could. And in the summer, all the sessions are in the river. So I had lots of open water. And yeah, they were just really, really helpful with that. And the, um, I'd been running before, so I kind of knew how to run a bit. And cycling, well, I did graduate from the mountain bike before age group, and decided I'd better actually have a road bike, which I still have, the same road bike now I race on that I bought back then.
That's impressive.
And yeah, I won't let it go because it's never done me any harm, that bike.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and the bike just came through, cycling with the club and going out and things. So, but it was the swimming. You have to take that one seriously.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's like most of us, I think, in a lot of the age groups that have been on, and myself included, you know how to swim basically, but you don't know how to swim properly until you
Yeah,
actually. It's so technical, isn't it, to try and get
yeah,
everything right. And
yes,
still, after all these years, still you can improve and improve and improve. And it's usually
yes,
the people, the athletes who've been doing it from children, are usually just the best because they've got the technique
yeah,
off. Um,
yeah,
yeah, 100%.
yeah. I was never going to be one of those. Um, so yeah, I I've retired from swimming now,
Right. Okay. So is it
but
just? Well, we'll
I
get on.
do
We'll get on to
just
that.
duathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Is, yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
so what was the reason behind that? Was it because you weren't competitive, especially being in the environment that you are now, like in Australia?
yeah, yeah. I think coming to Australia, you are surrounded by people who've swum their whole lives. But it wasn't just that. By the time I'd got to, it was only last year that I stopped. So by the time I'd done all the things that I wanted to do, I was starting to dread the 5:30 in the morning starts to go and swim from 6 till 7, 3 times a week, And I thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Up until that point, I hadn't minded it, and it was all part of what I wanted to do. But I think it coincided with my gradual move through the different areas of multisport, really.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for it. I mean, I say this to my teammates all the time. Some don't like running, some don't like biking, some don't like swimming.
Yeah,
Don't do it. If you don't like
yeah,
it, we primarily we do this for fun, don't we? So if you don't like
correct.
doing something, don't do it.
Yeah,
That's something
yeah,
you do like to do. Life's too
yeah,
short, isn't it?
yeah.
That was
Well, it
that was
has been quite liberating.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you get sucked in, don't you, to these things, and if you've been doing something for quite a long time, it becomes
Yeah,
who you are, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
yeah,
People say, "Oh, she's a triathlete,"
yes, yeah,
and then
yeah,
that's your label, then, aren't you?
yeah,
And it takes some doing to break that mold, I suppose, and just move away from it, and you know,
yeah.
especially when you're established.
Yes, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it has been quite liberating.
Well, that's great to hear. And I
Yeah,
hope for anybody listening that gives them, if they're thinking about it or they don't enjoy one aspect of it, because it's like we always
yeah,
say, there's loads of different events out now that you can do.
that's right. There is
Aquabike,
something for
aquathon,
everyone now.
triathlon,
Yeah,
triathlon. There's something for
exactly.
everybody,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
at a high level as well, so
yeah.
a lot to be said for it. So well done.
Mm. Thank you.
Yeah. So just going back to you'd said that you'd qualified for GB in age
Yep,
up in
yep,
Strathclyde, Q3.
yep,
Was
yep.
that was a triathlon, was it?
It's all been triathlons
All
up
been
until
triathlon.
the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. Sprint distance?
So weirdly, I um I think it was just in the lead up to qualifying, trying to qualify for that first one. I thought I'd have a quick go at doing my first 70.3. I decided that was something to aim for through the winter that would be good for my endurance.
Yeah.
So I did Mallorca 70.3
And how did that?
um, in the pouring rain. Yeah, yeah. We
Expected.
had this massive storm and but it was good actually. Despite the weather, I enjoyed it. And again, I was completely naive in terms of how to race it or, what I could have done to get better. For me on that occasion, it was just about turning up and finishing it. And
I think
and I
probably,
did that.
yeah, probably your first one of that distance or anything
Yeah.
long. Well, anything new, isn't it? You've got to just go with
Yeah.
the flow, really, because
Yeah.
until
See how
you've
it
done it,
works.
yeah, until you've done it, you
Yeah.
don't know, do you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I did slide that one in, but other than that, it was up until that point, it had all been sprints. Yeah.
So what did the Strathclyde qualification, what did you qualify for?
For Cozumel in Mexico.
Right.
Well, yeah, yeah. So that was amazing, an amazing place to go for your first world
Oh,
champs.
yeah.
Um, in the swim, they had photographers at the bottom of the sea taking photos up at you as you were
Is
swimming. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. It was the best one. Yeah.
that the best one you've done?
Yeah.
Wow.
Still. Yeah. It was incredibly well run and an incredible place to be. So yeah.
Excellent. And what happened next then?
Um, oh, okay. So quite soon after that, I left to go to Australia. And but by that point, I really wanted to do more age group. Australia won't let you do age group until you're a citizen,
Right.
which takes 4 years.
Okay.
So I decided I would go fly back to England and try and qualify, which was quite high pressure to go all that way, hoping. And but it was a double qualifier because they were changing the way it was working that year. So if you qualified, you got to go to Gold Coast and Lausanne in Switzerland. So and I did qualify, going back.
Excellent.
And so I got a place for GB in both of those.
Oh,
So that was great. Yeah. And of course, Gold Coast, it was just a few hours flight for me.
yeah. How
And
far is it from Perth?
it's a long way. I can't tell you how many kilometers it is,
Yeah.
but it's a 4 hour flight.
Right. Tis a good way then. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
over at the Gold Coast in 2018, um,
Yeah.
and it was just you just said about Mexico being your favorite. Well, Gold Coast was my
Yeah.
favorite. It was
Oh, great.
it really was.
Yeah. It was good fun as well. I will agree. And I think I got my best swim there ever. So that
The
was
only thing
good.
I, the only thing I didn't like was the purple boys.
Oh, I can't even remember
Yeah,
those,
they
but
were purple, and I mean, they just didn't stand out, and it wasn't a stormy day by any means, but it was a bit
right.
overcast. I had
Yeah,
to
there was a bit of a
spot.
current too.
Yeah,
I seem to remember, yeah. Um, I
great
have to
event.
say I don't remember the Purple Boys, but the rest of the event was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fab. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you do in those races?
Well, Mexico was my best. Came ninth, and then in the other two, not so good, much more competitive. I think I came 19th and 20th or something like that.
Which isn't bad in
So I
the
was still pleased. It was out of 75 or something, so I was pleased.
That's good.
Um, but yeah, it was they put me amongst some good swimmers,
Yeah,
uh, which is well, it's part of it, isn't it?
it is. Yeah,
Uh,
it is. As we've already discussed, it's all part of
yeah,
it. Over in
it
Australia,
is.
you get
Yes.
strong fields, so especially in that
Yeah,
discipline. Um,
yeah, yeah.
great. And so after you'd done those two races, what was the next?
So I think COVID was after those two.
Oh,
I'd
just
lost
going
my
back to just go. Sorry, just I'm just something's come up in my head. Just going back to when you moved over to Australia, how did
yeah.
that affect your training and everything else? Was it like
Mm.
starting from scratch or?
So obviously my we had quite a couple of months with no belongings, so because they were all being coming over by sea. So we had no bikes. So that put pay to that. So I was running. I hadn't really been able to train for about 3 or 4 months before we left because we just had so much to do. I had to just stop. And so it was a little bit like starting again, but there was a local triathlon club who were really welcoming and just got lots of local races. There's so many races here. We like literally racing every weekend. And so yeah, it didn't take long to get going at all. And but in Australia, well, where I am anyway, sprint is they do them as local races, but nobody does them as a thing. It's
Mm,
all about the long distance here.
yeah,
Everyone goes straight for the half Ironman and the Ironman distance. And sprint is really just for the playing at the weekend.
right.
Um, so that was kind of odd to start with. But it did mean that I was straight away into the 70.3 distance. And you can't hope for a more beautiful race than in Busselton, WA. It's like crystal clear waters, flat, 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 flat. Like I think in the whole ride, there's a 30-meter elevation out of 90K. I mean, it's so flat and it's just beautiful. So yeah, I've done that a few times and qualified for those worlds a couple of times
Yeah.
as well.
Where
Um,
where were the races at when you qualified?
the first one was in South Africa, but I didn't go. Um, and then the second one was for New Zealand, but that got delayed by COVID. And
Right.
as we came out of COVID, I qualified again, but that was for Utah, which is where they were doing the COVID ones. And I said no. Uh, but the New Zealand one was hanging over. I was allowed to choose where to go. So I went to Finland for that one.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Lovely.
that was, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, was
Somewhere
pretty fun.
completely Scandinavia, somewhere completely different.
Yes. Yeah. And freshwater swim. Um, yeah, really amazing. And they do good events. You have to hand it to Ironman. They do put on a good event, and it was a great atmosphere and fun. So yeah, I
Brilliant.
think that was uh I can't
What
remember. Oh yeah, so just
23?
before that, I think we did duathlon before that one.
Oh, did you? I was just going to ask you. So, how did you sort of get into the world of duathlon then from doing all these different triathlon
Yeah.
distances?
So during as COVID was coming to an end, my also got my citizenship. So I was like, okay, now's the time to go for Australia.
Hmm.
So in Western Australia, you only have one qualification race. So you have to go to it. And so I trained and trained and trained. And the week before the race, came off my bike and broke my collarbone. So disappointed, obviously, especially with only one qualification race. That's basically a year out. But in the lead up to that, I had gone to the state duathlon championships and won it for my age group. And so I was like, oh, okay, pretty sure there's a worlds for duathlon. So that was it. I applied for Australia for duathlon worlds, which were in Romania, and got the green and gold on. Doesn't suit me as well as blue and red, I have to say, and white, but never mind. Off to Romania I went for
Yeah.
Australia.
I mean, R Romania is a fantastic place. Um, one of those places that you wouldn't go to other than racing?
Absolutely, 100%. And it was fantastic. Loved it.
And how did you do?
Fifth.
Wow. Yeah. Well done. Yeah. So in Australia, how does that work? Because I think it's if you're the third Brit, you PQ for the next one.
Mm,
How do the Aussies do
yeah.
it?
There's no, you have to re-qualify every year,
Yeah.
and it's done on points. So even though I won state champs, that didn't guarantee me a spot. It got me 25 points. But if you do three races and win them all, you'll have 75 points. Um, and so some people will travel to other states to do their races to gain extra points. But that year there were so few Australians traveling that 25 points was enough to go through.
Do you
Yeah,
think
there's no PQs.
do you think that's a good system compared to what we've got?
Um I think the British system is better because it keeps the competition higher. Because you don't only have to come top three, but you have to come within 110% of the winner as well. Whereas in Australia, sometimes you can, if like the aquathon or something where not many people are going, you might qualify because you might get 20 points, but you finished an hour after the person at the top. So it means that it's not as, the people that end up going to the Worlds are not necessarily as competitive. Um, and it's harsh for us in WA because we only ever have one qualifying race.
Mm. And how have you felt integrating, like representing Australia? How's that been being a Brit? How have they taken to that?
Um, Fine. I mean, there are so many Brits here
Right, yeah, yeah.
that it's not an unusual thing. And yeah. I mean, I think the first time in Romania, I did feel a bit like every time I saw the GB people, like, I naturally wanted to be with them. Um, but and there were so few Australians there, so there wasn't a big camaraderie. Whereas um, by the time I was in Finland and then most recently in Townsville, so its group was so big, and then you were back to feeling like one of the team. Yeah, it was much better.
Must be having
Mm.
already raced for GB as well. It must be quite a weird sensation, I can imagine.
It really weird. Yeah, very, very weird. And you can't help but compare everything, the uniforms and the whole lot. But it's no, I'm definitely comfortable in the green and gold now.
Good to hear. Yeah, great. So what was
Mhm.
next after Romania?
After Romania, then I think was Finland that we've discussed,
Sure.
I think. And then most recently was duathlon again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I finished did Finland and came back to Australia, and a couple of weeks later I did the qualifier for the duathlon again, won it again, and that got me to Townsville, which,
Yeah. And how did you get on?
sorry, I came fourth.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. Yeah, so that was a good result then. You're happy with that?
Yeah, really happy with that. I've been training for an ultra marathon in
Right.
Switzerland and hadn't been on my bike I hadn't been on my bike at all. S-
Mhm.
So, fortunately, the day before the ultra marathon, it was cancelled.
Ah,
So I never got to run it, but it meant that I still only had 4 weeks from that day to Townsville.
why did you get and how did you get into ultra running?
So that was a little bit of a COVID thing. because the other races had all stopped, and the only thing still going were the ultra races,
Mhm.
um, or trail races in general. So I decided that I would sign up for one of our local ultra marathons, which is 80 kilometers, and see how it went. And it was good because it really did it gave me something to focus on through COVID. And it's an amazing event all along coastline, lots of sand. Um, and Yeah, it went really, really well. And so after that, I was like, oh, I think I might have found my new thing.
Yeah.
And so I've carried on very much with trail running. And I don't think I mentioned before, but I this year I qualified for the Xterra World Champs for the
Okay.
half marathon distance, but I didn't go because it was in Montana,
Right.
um, so a bit far away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going quite well,
What
and
what discipline was that? Was it a triathlon or was it a duathlon?
that's a trail run,
Just a trail,
trail
oh, Exterra
world.
trail run.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Because one of the
yeah.
guests, she's just done. I guess she's just done the Xterra Worlds triathlon
Oh yeah, yeah.
in
They do an
Italy.
off-road triathlons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and a duathlon. Yeah, in Italy. I've
yeah,
been
yeah,
I've been dabbling a little bit myself in not in Xterra but in off road this year because I've had so many
yeah.
injuries. So yeah, I've sort of like got into that world a little bit.
You
Uh,
enjoying it?
I loved. I did one race earlier on, and I loved it. It was so
Yeah,
hard, so different, but I loved it.
yeah.
Mountain
Good.
biking is just different to road biking. I mean, I love them both, but I'm just not
Yeah,
familiar with. I guess it's like you taking up a different, the
yeah.
ultra. Not familiar with anything, are you? It's all
That's
new.
right.
So,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but Xterra is
So
just a different world, isn't it?
it is, and yeah, I wasn't ready to travel across the world to one of their world champs at that time, but maybe in the future,
Yeah,
might give it a go.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I did that, and then I did a mountain one in the snowy mountains in Australia. That was 50K. And then I was building to this one in Switzerland, which was 100K, which didn't happen.
Mm.
Um, so this year I'm about to do a 3-day stage race, which is between 35 and 40K every day. And then I've got 50K in Thailand
Wow.
in December.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm busy now.
Yeah,
Running, running, running.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like you just said, it's just about different experiences, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and using them as an excuse to travel to really cool places.
Even better, isn't it? That you can actually see
Yeah,
the world and do things
yeah,
that you love. So, and
yeah.
does your family go with you as well?
Mostly, not always. No one came to Townsville. Um, Considered too boring, I think.
Yeah.
Too close.
Mm.
But yeah, my husband's a cyclist, so we'll often try and combine things so that he does an event when I'm doing, similar time. So that works out well. So yeah, they've been good support, my family, I have to say.
I was just going to say, when you're doing these ultras, are you self-contained or do you need a support
Mm.
group around you as well?
So Switzerland was going to be the first one where I was going to have my husband as crew. Prior to that, they've never gone through the night for me, so I haven't really needed someone. So we were all set up. Everything was arranged, and then it didn't happen. But yeah, I think if I get to UTMB, then I will need him to be crew for me.
And where's
Yeah.
the did you say that was Verbia in your email?
The one that didn't happen was Verbier.
Verbia. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was, but the one I want to get to is the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, which
Right.
is the main, like it's like Kona of trail running.
Yeah, yeah. I do follow a few ultra runners, and actually,
Hmm.
3 episodes ago, we had an Irish guy on he's an ultra runner, and he just got in
Oh,
touch
wow.
and he said,
Yeah.
I know I'm not multi-sport. He said, but would you mind me
Yeah.
coming on your podcast? I said, of course, come on.
Cool.
We chatted
Yeah.
all about his venture into ultra running, which is fascinating. But I do, and I said to him, I do follow a few ultra runners. And one of them is Sophie Caldwell, the British triathlon. Her
Yeah.
husband, Tom, he does
Okay.
running and he's got his own podcast and things.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Cool.
listen to that and
Yeah.
follow him on Instagram.
Well, yeah, it's a whole exciting world out there full of adventure, and that's what I enjoy about it. It's just like I love the world of multi-sport and how exciting it is, but the trail running is just different because it's really a mental game, and but no one cares if you stop and take a photo or if you stop and eat something, and it's much less sort of go 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 and more about um working out how to get yourself from there A to B. And so I spend a lot of time planning, um, even before I've started training. How am I going to get myself, like for Verbier, how was I going to get myself from somewhere that's mostly beach to be able to run 100K in the mountains?
Mm.
And that's the sort of challenge that appeals to me.
Well, it's a fantastic story. I know you said in your
Mhm.
email that you weren't sure whether anybody would be interested, but I think your journey's been so diverse in what you've done, start to finish, and it isn't finished yet, is it? Because you've got a long way to go. So thank you for sharing it, and I'm sure
No worries.
you will inspire um, people who listen to this because you've inspired me.
Oh, bless.
I don't think my legs would cope with doing long distance. I get too much running injuries as it is with doing the little running that I do. How do you cope with that? Do you get injured very often, or and what mileage are you
Well,
doing?
touch wood, I don't, but I'm quite like if I feel a twinge, I will stop, and not. So I do try and listen to myself. But I fell over today, so you do fall quite a lot. What mileage am I doing? At the moment, I'm doing about 90K a week, 90 to 100K a week. Um, Usually max out at about 120K.
Oh,
Which when you work is quite a lot.
yeah,
Have to do a lot of running to work and running home and things like that. But it's just so fun because every time you go out, it's like a whole little holiday all of its own. Um,
and what is the maximum distance you'll go up to before an event?
well, that obviously depends on the event, but I don't ever plan to do more than 100K events. I'm not interested in going to 100 miles or anything. So I think I would max out at 120K a week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it,
and
one session.
one single run, if I was aiming for 100K, I would probably do 50 to 60 as a single run. Yeah. Um, so yeah, you just, but you don't, as you know, you don't get there overnight. I started with maybe 5K a week, and you just gradually build up, and you can never believe it when you look at your stats and you think, how can I be running that much? It's just me. But you do.
Yeah.
You just go out and do it.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. Right, well, I think we'll move on to the quick fire questions, unless you've got anything that you'd like to add to that.
Mm, Only that the only thing I hope that comes from this is that some people do think, well, if she can do it, I can do it. That's all. Because I came from nothing, and it's been great fun, and all I want is for other people to enjoy that too.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. So the first quick fire question is, what's your favorite bit of kit? And it can be from any of the disciplines that you've done in the past. What's your favorite bit of kit?
Well, it's my bike. I mean, my bike has been with me forever, so Yeah.
That is the most common answer.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think usually because it's the most expensive thing that people buy, isn't it?
Yeah, probably is, but I just feel like mine's done so well and it's been around the world, and it's a live envy advance if anyone wants to know. Um, very old.
Yeah. Carbon.
Yes, yes, this what did manage to be carbon even back then.
Just checking.
And he's even got Di2s.
Oh wow. So yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think my wife, she's got a BMC, and that was one of the first iterations of DI, and hers is 7 or 8 year old now. So
Yeah, similar
I'm
sort of
still on
thing.
mechanical.
Fair enough.
But like you, I love my bike, and it's been around the world, and
Yeah,
I am slowly turning my mind to upgrading maybe next year, but we'll see.
yeah.
So when you're out running, how do you keep yourself entertained? Do you listen to music, or do you listen to podcasts or audiobooks or?
No, uh, I don't like to have anything in my ears. I like to be able to hear what's going on around me, um, especially if I'm running on my own. I'm quite cautious in terms of wanting to hear the snake or
Mm.
whatever is coming to get me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't, but I prefer to run with someone else. So when I'm running with my friends, we're just chatting the whole time. So, and when I'm on my own, it's just you just wander off into a world of thoughts, and you can solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, actually, the guy I had on, as I said, was an ultra runner. That's what he found, and he actually wrote a book. He's written a
Oh
book
wow.
about it. I think it's
Oh,
I haven't got it yet. I am meaning to get it. I think it's a poetry book about his
oh
experience
wow.
in dealing with things. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I think he felt the same, going off in the wilderness and whatever. It just
yeah,
frees you up and makes you
yeah,
think about different things.
yeah. You can. It's a lot of time on your own to have a good think.
So have you got a coach for this ultra running then, or you just go and run?
Um, so the coach I have was my triathlon coach. So he's not a specialist in ultra running,
Mhm.
um, but he's very good at, finding stuff out. And but he's also reasonably happy for me to set my own plan a little bit. Um, But yeah, so he keeps me on the straight and narrow, stops me from overdoing it, because I think that's my biggest issue is I would go and run too far too often and break. So he stops me from breaking.
I think that's with us all, isn't it? We've just got that
Yeah.
love of it and
Yeah.
want to do more and more, I guess. So with
Mm.
that, what does a week of training look like at the moment?
So Mondays is sprint with coach. So there's a group of us that have him as a coach, and he does sprint training with us. And then Tuesdays is Swift. And I was doing the Swift World League races, which were brilliant. But I haven't done that this season. Um, Wednesday will be treadmill, 10 to 15K on the treadmill. Thursday, run back from work, another 15K. Friday, today I did nearly 40K. Um, and then over the weekend would be a mixture of sort of 15 and then 20. So this week's going to be quite big because of today. Something like that. Yeah.
So every day you don't have a rest day.
I do try and have a rest day, but I just decide where that's going to fit, depending on what my volume is like. But I do try and have one rest day a week. Yeah.
And what resources do you use for your training or you
Um, so,
other than your
that's a good
coach?
question. Yeah, other than the coach. So I follow lots of trail runners like, Courtney Dauwalter and, people like that. And so
Killian,
you learn from them.
Killian
Um,
Jornet.
yes, yeah, well, of course. I mean, he's the god of trail running,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I won't ever be like him. So well, I read a lot of books.
Mm.
Anything that's to do with it, especially when I first get interested in it, I'll read all as much as I can about it. I guess that's the scientist in me. I want to know the facts. And, heat training for Thailand. Well, I look up the scientific papers
Mm.
on that to find out exactly what I have to do. I don't listen to other people about what I have to do. So it's a mixture of things, learning from others, but also looking at the facts myself. Um, so, and just experience as well. A lot of it is that like what works for you. No one can tell you that, can they?
No.
No one could have told me that I couldn't tolerate any food when I ran. So I've had to work that out.
Mm.
That's been a big issue,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
getting there now.
So just on that, you just said you can't tolerate any food. That's solid
Mhm.
food, is it? So what do you
Yeah.
use instead?
Um, I actually get mostly the pouches of custard and yogurt and things like that because they go down okay. I don't use gels. Um, I will eat things like I can have pepperonis. So I will eat those and they've got lots of fat and lots of salt in them. So
Yeah,
they go they're good. Um, but yeah, it's quite I am quite limited. I can have a little bit like a mini Snickers bar, can just about manage that. But mostly it's pouches of this and that. Baby foods, they work really well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then like carbohydrates and things in drinks or
Yeah, so I have learnt to tolerate tailwind now, and so I will have that throughout the run.
mm,
But that I'll have 2 liters of plain water in the back and a liter of tailwind in the front.
tailwind
And
being
it's a carbohydrate powder that you put into your water. It's probably one of the most common ones that trail runners use. Um, So yeah, but that seems to work so
yeah.
far. So
Well, it is. It's about testing all these things out in no matter what discipline you're doing, isn't it? And finding
yeah,
out what works for you because we are all
yeah,
unique and we're all different. We all have our own biome and everything
yes,
else. And
yeah,
what stomachs,
yeah,
as we're only just finding out now these days, it's an incredible organ,
yeah,
isn't it? What's in
yes,
so, yeah.
that's right. And it was so easy to eat on the bike in triathlons. That
Mm.
was never an issue with me. I could have eaten like a full roast dinner if I'd wanted to, it was fine. But running, it's a different thing.
Yeah. So why do you think that is?
Just because you're jolting up and down all the time. I mean, I'm not alone. It's
Yeah, yeah,
it's a well-known phenomena that people will struggle to tolerate things. Um, so you know, I think that's why there are so many carbohydrate options for runners because it's a big market. Not
mm,
being able to eat is a big market.
yeah.
Um,
And I mean they develop these things to make it easier as well, haven't they?
yeah, yeah.
Don't have
But a
to.
lot of the top trail runners, they'll eat pizza. That's their go-to. It's definitely a lot more it's much less scientific than triathlon.
Yeah, that's interesting. All the same. So
Mm.
finally, final couple of questions. I guess you've answered the first one. It's what's your shorter and your longer term goals?
So my short term, as you say, I've answered, it's this 3-day ultra and then Thailand. And then my long-term goal is to do the 100-kilometer race at the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc next year. Um, but it's a lottery entry. You
Okay.
don't qualify, so I have no idea of knowing, but that's why I'm going to Thailand because Thailand is double lottery tickets. So
Uh,
I'll get 4 tickets there instead of the usual two, and then I'll find out at the end of January if I've got a place.
and then in the future. after those?
Uh, who knows? Who knows? I had retired from multisport, and then somebody said Abu Dhabi to me, and I was like, oh, that might have to be done. So I might come back and do duathlon at Abu Dhabi.
Excellent. Well,
Mhm.
good luck with everything. Is
Thank
there
you, and you.
are you on any social medias that people can follow your adventures?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Beach to Peak.
Beach.
Oh, it's got underscore beach underscore to underscore peak.
Yeah,
And two is TO.
was the second one down. Yeah, got you. Followed.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
excellent. So
And
beach underscore to underscore peak. And we can follow
yes,
your adventures on
you
there. That's
can.
fantastic to watch. I love watching and following all the guys that I've had on the podcast,
Yeah.
dropping comments and encouragement and things. It's a way to keep interacting.
Yeah.
So thank you ever so much. That's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed chatting. Um,
Good.
we've done all right considering we're on the opposite side of the world.
Yeah, not too bad.
It's been lovely to speak to you, Natasha. Good luck with everything.
And you,
Uh,
and to you as well.
yeah, and I'll follow you on Instagram and
Okay,
all right.
perfect. Thank
Have a
you.
great rest of the evening. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And there she goes. Like I said, good luck to Natasha with everything that she's got going on. I've now started following her on Instagram, and some of the photographs and the posts that she puts up are a breathtaking, stunning, lovely part of the world that she lives in. And isn't technology brilliant that we can speak to somebody on the other side of the world and get something like this together? Yeah, really, really amazing. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please share our podcast with your like-minded friends. And if I could ask you to just comment, review, like, share, that would be much appreciated, because that does help us get our podcast out to more like-minded people. And if you want to get in touch, and if you want to come on the podcast, because we are always looking for guests, and don't think that your story isn't any good, because they're all brilliant. You can send us an email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com with a little bit of a background about yourself growing up as a kid and how you got into multisport and age group. You can find us on Instagram. We're on amp_1967. We're on Facebook at ampgb. We're on X at Age Group Multisport Podcast. And like I said, we've got our own YouTube channel, AmpGB, and there's loads of videos on there, and all the podcasts are on there as well. So yeah, if you could support us and share, that would be amazing. So that's it for another episode. And until next time, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.